My name is Rachel, and I just turned 32 last week. What should have been a celebration turned into the worst day of my life. For the past 4 years, I have been sending my younger brother Matthew $5,000 every month from my marketing business. I thought I was helping family. Instead, on my birthday, he called me a freeloader and a leech. Before I continue my story about how my own family turned on me after everything I did for them, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If stories about standing up for yourself resonate with you, please like and subscribe to see more content like this. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Chicago with my parents and younger brother Matthew. Our childhood was relatively normal until I turned 15 and Matthew was 12. That was when our parents decided to get divorced. The split was messy, with shouting matches and slammed doors becoming our new normal. I remember trying to shield Matthew from the worst of it, spending hours in his room playing board games or helping with homework while our parents argued downstairs. The divorce changed our family dynamic completely. Our father moved to another state for work, sending child support but rarely visiting. Our mother Karen was left to raise us alone, and that was when I first noticed her favoritism toward Matthew. She would brush it off as boys need more attention, or he is taking the divorce harder, but the difference in how she treated us was unmistakable. While Matthew got new video games and basketball equipment, I was told to be understanding about money being tight. When I needed new clothes for school, I was encouraged to get a part-time job. By 16, I was working weekends at a local cafe while maintaining honor roll grades. Matthew, meanwhile, was struggling academically, but receiving endless patience and support from our mother. College was another challenge entirely. I applied for every scholarship possible and still had to work 2 jobs to make ends meet. My schedule was brutal: morning classes, afternoon shifts at the campus bookstore, evening waitressing, and late nights studying. Meanwhile, our mother somehow found money to help Matthew with his community college expenses. Despite his mediocre grades and frequent course withdrawals, despite these challenges, I graduated with a business degree and immediately set my sights on building a career. Starting as a junior marketing associate at a small agency, I worked 80-hour weeks and soaked up every bit of industry knowledge I could. Within 3 years, I had been promoted twice and was handling major client accounts. 10 years of relentless work later, I had built my own digital marketing consultancy that specialized in helping small businesses grow their online presence. It was not glamorous, but I had 15 reliable clients and was making good money, enough to live comfortably in my modest 2-bedroom apartment and have some savings. That was when Matthew first came to me with a financial crisis. He was 24 and had just lost his 3rd job that year, something about conflicts with management that was never his fault. He was 3 months behind on rent and facing eviction. "Just until I get back on my feet, Rach," he promised. Those familiar blue eyes pleading just like when he was a kid asking me to cover for him with mom. "I will pay you back every penny." Against my better judgment, I gave him $3,000 to cover his back rent and another $1,000 to tide him over until he found a new job. I did not expect to see that money again, and I was right. What I did not expect was for this to become a pattern. A few months later, it was car repairs and insurance. Then it was medical bills. Each time, the amount seemed to grow, and the reasons became less specific. "I just need a little help," or "things are tight right now," became common phrases in our conversations. By the time 2 years had passed, I was regularly sending him $5,000 every month. The reasons had stopped altogether. It was just expected. A standing arrangement that was never discussed, but always fulfilled. My business was doing well, but not so well that this was not a significant drain on my resources. Still, he was my brother, and family helps family. That is what I told myself. What was strange was how Matthew always seemed to have nice things despite his supposed financial struggles. His social media showed him in designer clothes. He drove a newer model BMW that he claimed was just a good deal I found. When I visited his apartment, I noticed expensive electronics and furniture that did not align with someone in constant financial need. Meanwhile, I lived modestly. My apartment was nice, but not luxurious. I drove a reliable 5-year-old Honda. I rarely splurged on designer items, preferring to reinvest in my business. I took occasional weekend trips, but nothing extravagant. I was not struggling by any means, but I was certainly not living as lavishly as my supposedly broke brother. Our mother was no help in bringing any reality to the situation. If anything, she encouraged it. "You know how hard things have been for Matthew," she would say whenever I expressed the slightest hesitation about the arrangement. "And you are doing so well with your little computer job." My little computer job was a 6-figure business I had built from nothing, but in her eyes, it was never as impressive as whatever potential she believed Matthew possessed. Potential that somehow never materialized into actual achievement or self-sufficiency. Despite all this, I desperately wanted to maintain a connection with my family. Our father had remarried and started a new family in Arizona, rarely keeping in touch with either of us. Our mother and Matthew were all the biological family I had left. So I kept writing the checks, kept showing up for holidays, kept hoping for some recognition or appreciation that never seemed to come. This year, I decided to celebrate my 32nd birthday with them. I was genuinely excited, planning to bring an expensive custom cake from an upscale bakery and gifts for both of them despite it being my birthday. For my mother, I had found a beautiful silk scarf from her favorite designer that she had admired but called too expensive months ago. For Matthew, I had splurged on the latest gaming console he had been talking about, thinking it might bring back memories of us playing video games together as kids. I arrived at their suburban house at 6 in the evening as planned, arms loaded with presents and the large bakery box. I had been looking forward to this dinner all week, imagining warm conversation and maybe, just maybe, some acknowledgement of all I had done for them over the years. Little did I know, this birthday would change everything. I rang the doorbell twice before Matthew answered, his eyes barely leaving his phone screen as he stepped aside to let me in. No, happy birthday. No offer to help with the packages I was struggling to balance. "Mom is on the phone," he said, already walking back to the living room where I could hear the sound of a video game paused. "We will eat whenever." I stood awkwardly in the entryway for a moment before making my way to the kitchen to put down the cake and gifts. The house was messier than usual, with takeout containers and shopping bags scattered around. On the kitchen counter sat a new espresso machine that looked like it cost at least $1,000, still with tags attached. Next to it was a stack of shopping bags from high-end electronics stores. I placed the cake in the refrigerator and arranged the gifts on the dining table, which had not been set for dinner despite our plans. No plates, no silverware, not even a birthday card in sight. "Hello, Rachel," my mother said, finally emerging from her bedroom after I had been waiting for nearly 45 minutes. "I did not realize you would be so early." I wasn't early. I was right on time for the dinner she had agreed to host. But I swallowed my disappointment and smiled. "Happy to see you, Mom. I brought cake from that bakery you like downtown." "Oh, that is nice," she said, glancing at her watch. "I have not started dinner yet. There is some pasta in the pantry if you want to make something." I ended up cooking dinner for my own birthday, while my mother sat at the kitchen island scrolling through her tablet and making occasional comments about neighbors or relatives I barely remembered. Matthew remained in the living room, the sounds of his game punctuating our one-sided conversation. By the time we finally sat down to eat the pasta I had prepared, it was almost 8:30. Matthew joined us reluctantly, bringing his phone to the table and checking it between bites. "So, how is your business going?" my mother asked, the first direct question she had posed all evening. "Actually, really great," I said, perking up at the chance to share my news. "I just landed a major client last week. A national restaurant chain that wants to revamp their entire digital strategy. It is the biggest contract I have ever had." "That is nice," my mother said with the same inflection she had used to acknowledge the cake. "Matthew has been thinking about getting into social media management. Maybe you could give him some contacts." Matthew snorted without looking up from his phone. "No thanks. I am not interested in being chained to a desk all day like Rachel. No offense, but you look exhausted all the time. Those dark circles under your eyes are not a good look." I unconsciously touched the skin beneath my eyes, feeling a sting of hurt at his casual cruelty. I have been working hard on the proposal for the new client, I said quietly. It will calm down soon. You always say that, my mother chimed in. Maybe if you found a nice man to settle down with, you would not have to work so much. I pushed my pasta around the plate, appetite fading. This was supposed to be my birthday dinner. Yet, somehow I was being criticized for my appearance and life choices instead of celebrated. Speaking of work, I said, trying to steer the conversation to necessary business. I might be traveling next month for the new client. I will make sure to send your money before I leave, Matthew, but it might be a few days earlier than usual. The casual mention of the monthly payment immediately changed the atmosphere. Matthew's head snapped up from his phone, and my mother's expression sharpened. How many days early? Matthew asked, his tone suddenly focused. I have some bills due on specific dates. Just a few days, maybe a week at most. Is that going to be a problem? It might be, he said. Tension evident in his voice. I have things scheduled around when that money usually comes in. What kind of things? I asked, genuinely curious about what financial obligations were so precisely timed that a few days would matter. Maybe I can help you adjust the timing. That is none of your business, he snapped. Just because you send money does not mean you get to micromanage how I spend it. My mother quickly intervened, changing the subject with practiced ease. Matthew has been looking at some investment opportunities. Very smart planning for his future. Speaking of which, he needs to increase his emergency fund. I was thinking you could maybe add a little extra next month. And just like that, we were no longer discussing my birthday or my achievement with the new client. We were discussing Matthew's needs and my obligation to meet them. I sighed and nodded, not wanting to create conflict. This was the dynamic I had grown accustomed to over the years. My accomplishments minimized, my existence valued primarily for what I could provide. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text message from my friend Jessica. Happy birthday again. How is the family dinner going? Remember, you are amazing and deserve to be celebrated today. Call me tomorrow and we will have a proper birthday lunch. The contrast between Jessica's warm message and the cold reality of my family dinner made my throat tighten with emotion. This was supposed to be different. I was supposed to matter today. Of all days. I excused myself to use the bathroom, needing a moment to compose myself. As I walked down the hallway, I caught a glimpse of Matthew's bedroom door, partially open. Inside, I could see shopping bags from luxury brands piled on his bed, tags still attached to items carelessly tossed aside. A new gaming chair that had to cost at least $800 sat in the corner, still partially wrapped in plastic. Something cold settled in my stomach as I continued to the bathroom. The disconnect between his constant financial emergencies and his spending habits was becoming impossible to ignore. When I returned to the dining table, Matthew was on his phone again. This time actually talking to someone. Yeah, man, the Bahamas trip is all set for next month, he was saying, completely unconcerned that I could hear him. First-class tickets, beachfront villa. The works. Going to be epic. He noticed me standing there and quickly wrapped up his call. Gotta go. Talk details later. I took my seat again, a knot forming in my stomach. You're going to the Bahamas? Matthew shrugged. Just a quick trip with some friends. No big deal. First-class tickets and a beachfront villa sounds like a pretty big deal, I countered, unable to keep the edge from my voice. That must be expensive. Are you monitoring my conversations now? He asked, immediately defensive. What I do with my friends is my business. My mother placed her hand on my arm. Rachel, it is not polite to eavesdrop. Matthew works hard and deserves to enjoy himself sometimes. I looked between them, momentarily speechless. Matthew had not held a job for more than a few months and years. His work consisted primarily of vague references to business ideas and investment opportunities that never seemed to materialize. I am going to get some water, I said, needing to step away before I said something I would regret. In the kitchen, I opened the refrigerator door and stood there for a moment, letting the cool air wash over my flushed face. As I reached for a water pitcher, I noticed a stack of receipts held to the refrigerator with a magnet. Normally, I wouldn't look. But something caught my eye, a receipt from an electronics store dated just 3 days ago. The total, $4,875. Almost exactly the amount I had sent Matthew last month for what he claimed were medical bills for our mother. I grabbed the receipt and returned to the dining room. Mom, have you been having medical treatments recently? She looked confused. No more than my usual checkups. Why? I placed the receipt on the table. Because Matthew told me last month that he needed $5,000 for your medical bills. Bills that apparently turned into $4,000 worth of electronics. The room went silent. Matthew's face flushed red, but it was anger, not embarrassment, that flashed in his eyes. You are going through our trash now, he demanded. Looking for receipts like some kind of detective? It was on the refrigerator, I said calmly, though my heart was racing. And you did not answer my question. You told me Mom needed medical care. Was that a lie? I never specifically said it was for medical bills, he hedged. I said I needed to help Mom with some expenses. No, you specifically mentioned medical treatments. I remember because I asked if her insurance was not covering them. My mother interjected, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Rachel, it is your birthday. Let us not argue about money tonight. That is exactly the problem, I said, feeling years of suppressed frustration bubbling to the surface. We never talk about the money. I just send it, month after month, without asking questions. And apparently it is being spent on luxury vacations and electronics, while I am told it is for necessities. Matthew pushed back from the table, chair scraping loudly against the floor. You think you are so perfect, do not you? Miss Successful Business Owner looking down on everyone else. If you do not want to help your family, just say so. Do not act like you are some martyr. I have been sending you $5,000 every month for years, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. That is $60,000 a year. More than many people's entire salary. And I have never complained or asked for anything in return except basic honesty. Oh, here we go with the money talk, Matthew sneered. Always holding it over my head like I should bow down in gratitude. You think your money makes you better than me? No. I think my honesty makes me better than you, I shot back. I work hard for what I have. I do not lie to get money from family members. My mother stood up, her face tight with anger. That is enough, Rachel. How dare you speak to your brother that way? After everything this family has done for you. I stared at her in disbelief. What exactly has this family done for me, Mom? I put myself through college. I built my business without any help. I have been financially supporting both of you for years. We gave you a home, she said, as if that settled everything. We have always been there for you. Have you? When was the last time either of you asked about my life? My business? My dreams? When was the last time you remembered my birthday without me having to arrange my own celebration? Matthew scoffed. Not everything is about you, Rachel. Some of us have real problems. Like what? I challenged. What real problems do you have that justify taking thousands of dollars from me every month while living a lifestyle most people can only dream of? I do not have to justify myself to you, he said, but I could see the flicker of guilt in his eyes before it was replaced by defensive anger. You act like you are doing me some huge favor. But we all know you just send that money to feel important, to have control, to make yourself feel better about how empty your life is. Each word felt like a physical blow. I had never expected gratitude, but I certainly had not expected this level of contempt. If my help is such a burden to your pride, I said quietly, I can stop sending it. The immediate panic that flashed across both their faces would have been comical if it were not so revealing. No one is saying that, my mother said quickly. Matthew is just upset because you are questioning him. Of course, we appreciate your help. Do you? Because it seems like you both resent me for it while simultaneously expecting it to continue indefinitely. Matthew's expression darkened. You know what your problem is, Rachel? You think money is the same as love. You throw cash at us instead of actually being present. When was the last time you came over just to hang out? When was the last time you called Mom just to talk? Not to brag about some client or check if we need anything. There was a tiny grain of truth buried in his accusation that stung more than I wanted to admit. I had been keeping emotional distance while maintaining financial closeness. But it was not for the reasons he implied. I stayed away because every interaction ends like this, I said, gesturing to the tense scene around the table, with me feeling used and unappreciated. With every accomplishment of mine minimized while I am expected to celebrate and finance every whim of yours. See? You are keeping score, Matthew said triumphantly, as if he had proven his point. That is not how family works. How does family work, Matthew? Please enlighten me. Because from where I am sitting, it seems like I am expected to give endlessly while receiving nothing in return, not even basic respect. Tears of frustration burned behind my eyes. But I refused to let them fall. I would not give him the satisfaction of seeing how deeply his words had wounded me. You want to talk about respect? Matthew stood up, looming over the table. How respectful is it to interrogate me about how I spend my money? It is not your money, I said, the words out before I could stop them. It is mine. Money that I earned and chose to share with you. The room went deadly silent. I had finally said aloud what had been unspoken for years, and there was no taking it back. I cannot believe you just said that. Matthew's voice was low and dangerous. After everything we have done for you. What exactly have you done for me? I asked again. My patience finally exhausted. Name one thing, Matthew. One concrete thing you have done to support me in the last 5 years. He opened his mouth, closed it, then looked to our mother for support. Rachel, that is enough, she said sharply. You are being incredibly selfish right now. Your brother has been going through a difficult time, and instead of supporting him emotionally, all you can talk about is money. A difficult time? I repeated incredulously. He just booked a first-class trip to the Bahamas. He is driving a BMW and wearing clothes that cost more than most people's monthly rent. What exactly is difficult about his life? You do not know everything about his situation. My mother insisted, though she did not elaborate on what these mysterious difficulties might be. Then enlighten me, I challenged. Because from where I am standing, it looks like I have been financing a luxury lifestyle under false pretenses for years. Matthew suddenly slammed his hand down on the table, making the plates jump. The cake I had brought, now sitting in the center of the table still uncut, trembled from the impact. You know what? I am done with this, he said, his face contorted with anger. Done with your judgmental attitude and your holier-than-thou bull. He stood up so forcefully that his chair tipped over backward, crashing to the floor. In the same motion, he swept his arm across the table, sending the birthday cake flying. It hit the wall with a dull thud, frosting and cake splattering across the beige paint. Matthew, our mother gasped, though I noticed her concern seemed to be more for the mess than for his behavior. I sat frozen, watching my beautiful birthday cake slide down the wall in clumps of buttercream and vanilla sponge. It was such a perfect metaphor for this entire evening that I almost wanted to laugh, though there was nothing funny about the situation. You want to know the truth, Rachel? Matthew was shouting now, his face inches from mine as he leaned across the table. You are the real freeloader here. You are a leech who could not live without us. You think your little business makes you special? You think sending money makes you important? You are nothing but a sad, lonely woman who buys people's affection because no one would want you otherwise. Each word hit like a physical blow, stealing my breath and making my chest ache. But he was not finished. Everyone knows it, too. I have told the whole family about how stingy and controlling you are. How you hold your money over our heads and make us beg for every penny. How you have all this success, but are too selfish to really help your family in a meaningful way. I stared at him in disbelief. You told people I am stingy? While I am sending you $5,000 every month. Money you apparently spend on luxury items while lying about what it is for. It is not about the amount, he sneered. It is about your attitude. You have always been jealous of me, of the potential mom sees in me. You cannot stand that I might actually make something of myself one day. So you keep me dependent on your handouts. The sheer audacity of his statement momentarily rendered me speechless. My mother, rather than correcting this outrageously false narrative, was nodding along. You have always been competitive with your brother, she said, as if this explained everything. Always trying to outshine him, even as a child. Some things never change. I looked between them, these two people who were supposed to be my family, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. A lifetime of seeking approval, of making excuses for their behavior, of hoping that generosity would eventually translate to love, crumbled in an instant. I have given you over $200,000 in the last 4 years, I said. My voice surprisingly steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. I have supported both of you financially while asking for nothing in return except basic respect. And this is what I get. Accusations, lies, and cake thrown against the wall on my birthday. I stood up slowly, gathering my purse and phone. I am done. No more money, no more support. No more trying to buy a place in this family when it is clear I have never really had one. My mother's expression changed instantly from righteous anger to panic. What do you mean, no more money? You cannot just cut us off. We have bills, responsibilities. Bills for what? The luxury items you do not need? The vacations and designer clothes and expensive toys? Figure it out yourselves. I am sure Matthew's potential will start paying the bills any day now. Matthew's face darkened with rage. You selfish bitch. You cannot just walk away from your family obligations. Watch me, I said, heading for the door. My mother hurried after me, her entire demeanor shifting to a desperate plea. Rachel, honey, he did not mean those things. He is just upset. We can talk about this tomorrow when everyone is calmer. There is nothing to talk about, I said, reaching for the door handle. I have spent years trying to be part of this family. And all I have gotten in return is manipulation and lies. I am not doing it anymore. If you walk out that door, do not bother coming back, my mother said, her tone suddenly cold. If you are not going to support this family properly, then you are no daughter of mine. I turned to look at her, this woman who had given birth to me but had never truly been on my side. Support this family? I have been the only one supporting this family for years. Get out, she hissed, her eyes hard and unfamiliar. Get out, you garbage, and do not show your face again. The word garbage hit me like a physical slap. In 32 years, through all our disagreements and tension, my mother had never called me anything like that. It confirmed what I had suspected but never wanted to believe. In her eyes, I was valuable only for what I could provide, not for who I was. I walked out, the door slamming behind me with such force that it rattled the windows. In my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel, my entire body shaking uncontrollably. Tears streamed down my face as the full weight of what had just happened settled on me. I had just been disowned by my mother, called garbage, told never to return, on my birthday. And the worst part? I had nowhere to go. My apartment was currently being renovated after a water leak, and I had been staying in a hotel for the past week. I had planned to spend tonight at my mother's house, thinking it would be a nice birthday celebration rather than the catastrophe it had become. I started the car with trembling hands, pulling away from the house I had grown up in, now feeling like a hostile foreign place. As I drove, sobs racked my body, making it hard to see the road through my tears. I had to pull over twice when panic attacks made my chest so tight I could not breathe. By midnight, I was driving aimlessly through the city, homeless on my birthday. Completely untethered from the family I had sacrificed so much to maintain a connection with. I eventually checked into a different hotel from the one I had been staying at, wanting a complete break from my previous routine. The night manager looked concerned at my tear-stained face, but thankfully did not ask questions. In the anonymous quiet of the hotel room, I curled up on the bed fully clothed and cried until exhaustion finally pulled me into a restless sleep. The morning brought physical pain along with the emotional. My head pounded. My eyes were swollen and my body felt like I had been in a car accident. The events of the previous night played on repeat in my mind, each remembrance bringing fresh waves of hurt and disbelief. Around 10, my phone rang. It was Stephanie, my office manager and closest work colleague. Rachel, are you okay? You never miss our morning meeting without calling in. The simple kindness in her voice nearly set me off crying again. I am sorry, Steph. I should have texted. Something happened with my family last night, and I am not doing great right now. What do you need? She asked without hesitation. Tell me how I can help. This straightforward offer of support so different from the manipulative dynamics I had grown accustomed to with my family, broke something open inside me. I found myself telling her everything in a torrent of words. The years of financial support, the lies, the cruel words, being called garbage and kicked out. I do not even know where to go, I admitted. My apartment is still being repaired, and I was supposed to stay at my mom's last night. Now I am in this random hotel feeling completely lost. Come stay with me, Stephanie said immediately. I have a guest room that is just sitting empty. Stay as long as you need to figure things out. I could not impose like that, I protested weakly. It is not an imposition. It is what friends do for each other. Pack your things and text me the hotel address. I will come pick you up on my lunch break. By that afternoon, I was settled into Stephanie's spare room, surrounded by simple kindness that made the contrast with my family's treatment even more stark. She ordered takeout, opened a bottle of wine, and let me talk through the whole situation again, offering perspective I had been too close to see. Rachel, I hope this does not sound harsh, but what they were doing to you is financial abuse, she said gently. They were exploiting your generosity and manipulating you emotionally to keep the money flowing. That is not love. That is not family. But maybe Matthew was right about one thing, I said, voicing a fear that had been haunting me. Maybe I was using money as a substitute for real connection. Maybe I was trying to buy their love. Stephanie shook her head firmly. No. You were genuinely trying to help family members you cared about. The fact that you are questioning yourself instead of them after what they did shows what kind of person you are. That first week away from my family was both painful and strangely freeing. My phone buzzed constantly with texts and calls from Matthew, each one more demanding than the last. You need to reconsider this childish tantrum. The rent is due next week. Where's the money? Mom is distraught because of your selfishness. I have bills to pay. This is not a joke. When those tactics did not work, he switched to guilt-tripping. Mom is having chest pains from the stress you caused. I might lose my apartment because of you. This is what family means to you? Abandoning us when we need you. My mother's messages were similarly manipulative. Alternating between health scares, my blood pressure is through the roof because of this situation, and emotional blackmail. No real daughter would treat her mother this way. Stephanie helped me see these messages for what they were, desperate attempts to regain control now that their source of easy money was gone. With her encouragement, I scheduled an appointment with a financial advisor to get a clear picture of exactly how much I had given my family over the years. The final tally was staggering. $237,000 over 4 years. Money that could have gone toward buying a house, expanding my business, or building a secure retirement fund. The good news, the advisor told me, is that stopping this financial drain will dramatically improve your future outlook. The bad news is that you cannot recover what has already been given. After a week of increasingly desperate messages from Matthew and my mother, I made the difficult decision to block their numbers. Before doing so, I sent one final text. I have supported you both financially for years out of love and a desire to help. In return, I was lied to, manipulated, and ultimately called garbage and thrown out of the house on my birthday. I am not an ATM. I am a person with feelings who deserved better treatment from her family. I need space and time to heal. Please do not contact me again. Then I blocked both their numbers, social media accounts, and email addresses. The silence that followed was both painful and peaceful. Finding a new apartment became my focus in the second week. With Stephanie's support, I toured several places before finding a secure building with controlled access and, importantly, a location my family did not know. I signed a lease on a modern one-bedroom that cost less than half of what I had been sending Matthew every month, a realization that drove home just how excessive my financial support had been. I also started therapy, something I should have done years ago. My therapist helped me understand the dynamics that had led to such an unhealthy family system. What you are describing is a classic case of family roles, she explained. You were assigned the role of provider and caretaker, while your brother was enabled to remain dependent and entitled. Your mother reinforced these roles because they benefited her emotionally and financially. But how did I not see it? I asked, frustrated with myself. How did I let it go on for so long? Because they are your family and you love them. We all want to believe the best of the people we love. And patterns established in childhood are incredibly powerful. You were conditioned from an early age to put others' needs before your own. As the weeks passed, I reconnected with old friends I had neglected while focusing so much energy on my dysfunctional family relationships. I was surprised to find how many people welcomed me back into their lives with open arms, no questions asked. Jessica, my friend who had texted birthday wishes during that disastrous dinner, became a regular presence in my life again. We resumed our weekend brunches and movie nights, simple pleasures I had forgotten how much I enjoyed. I never liked how they treated you, she admitted during one of our outings. But I knew you had to see it for yourself. You are too loyal for your own good sometimes. For the first time in years, I found myself experiencing genuine moments of peace and even happiness. Without the constant drain of worry about my family and their financial emergencies, I had more energy for my business, my friends, and myself. I started a yoga practice, took a weekend painting workshop, and even went on a date with an interesting man I met through a business connection. None of these things would have seemed possible just a month earlier, when my entire life revolved around work and supporting my family. The realization was both liberating and sad. How much of my life had I missed while trapped in that dysfunctional system? 2 weeks after I moved into my new apartment, I received a call from a number I did not recognize. Normally, I would let it go to voicemail, but I was expecting a call from a potential new client, so I answered. Rachel? It is Aunt Linda. My mother's sister, whom I had not spoken to in at least a year, was not the person I expected to hear from. Hi, Aunt Linda. Is everything okay? I am calling about your brother, she said, her tone heavy with concern. His car was repossessed yesterday. He says you have cut him off completely, and he has no way to pay his bills. Of course, he had started spreading his version of events to the extended family. I should have expected nothing less. Did he tell you why I stopped sending him money? I asked carefully. He said you had some kind of fight on your birthday. Something about you feeling unappreciated. But Rachel, he is your brother. Family helps family through rough patches. I took a deep breath. Aunt Linda, I have been sending Matthew $5,000 every month for 4 years. That is not a rough patch. That is a lifestyle I was financing while he lied about what the money was for. There was a pause on the other end of the line. $5,000? Every month? For 4 years. Yes. And on my birthday, when I finally questioned where it was going, he called me a leech and a freeloader. Mom called me garbage and kicked me out of the house. So yes, I stopped sending money after that. Another long pause. I had no idea it was that much money. Or that things had gotten so ugly. Matthew just said you were being stingy and had abandoned the family. That is not even close to what happened, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. But I am not surprised that is the story he is telling. After that call, I received several more from other family members, each with a similar narrative. Matthew was struggling. My mother was distraught, and I was the villain who had abandoned them in their time of need. Each time, I calmly explained the truth, including the amount of money involved and the cruel words that had been the final straw. Most expressed shock at the full story, though I could tell some still thought I should reconcile for the sake of family peace, regardless of how I had been treated. Family dynamics run deep, and many people would rather maintain a toxic status quo than acknowledge ugly truths. Meanwhile, I threw myself into my work, finding unexpected joy in focusing fully on my business without the constant underlying stress of family drama. The national restaurant chain client was thrilled with my initial campaign, leading to an expanded contract and referrals to 2 other businesses in their network. My company was growing faster than ever, a development that brought both financial security and a sense of validation. I was in the middle of a virtual meeting with a new client when my building's security desk called. Ms. Morgan, there are 2 people in the lobby insisting they need to see you. A Karen Morgan and Matthew Morgan. They say they are family. My heart dropped. Did you tell them I live here? No, ma'am. I just said I would check if you were available. Should I send them up? Absolutely not, I said firmly. Please tell them I am not available and they need to leave. After ending the call, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. How had they found my new address? I had been so careful not to leave any trails. 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. The security guard sounded apologetic. "Ms. Morgan, I am sorry to bother you again, but these people are refusing to leave. The woman is claiming a medical emergency and saying she needs to see her daughter immediately." Of course she was. The same manipulation tactics, just in a new venue. "There is no medical emergency," I said, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. "If they do not leave voluntarily, please feel free to call the police." "Actually, ma'am, would you be willing to come down? Maybe you could speak to them briefly in the lobby where security is present. They are causing quite a scene, and I would prefer not to involve the authorities if possible." I considered refusing, but realized this confrontation was probably inevitable. Better to have it on my terms, in a public place with security present, than to have them continue showing up or making scenes. "I will be down in 5 minutes," I agreed. In the elevator, I practiced deep breathing techniques my therapist had taught me for managing anxiety. By the time the doors opened to the lobby, I felt centered and calm, my boundaries firmly in place. They spotted me immediately. My mother looked deliberately disheveled, her normally perfect hair uncombed and her clothes wrinkled. Matthew stood beside her, his expression a practiced mix of concern and distress. Both rushed toward me as soon as I appeared. "Rachel, thank God," my mother cried, reaching for me. I stepped back, maintaining physical distance. "Please do not touch me," I said quietly. "Why are you here? And how did you find my address?" "We have been worried sick about you," my mother said, ignoring my questions. "You disappeared, blocked our numbers. We thought something terrible had happened." "Nothing terrible happened," I said calmly. "I told you both very clearly that I needed space. You chose not to respect that, so I enforced my boundary by blocking your numbers." Matthew stepped forward, his voice low and urgent. "Rachel, we need to talk privately. Family business should not be discussed in public." I shook my head. "I am perfectly comfortable having this conversation right here. What do you want?" They exchanged glances, clearly thrown off by my calm refusal to play by their rules. "Can we at least sit down?" my mother asked, gesturing to a small seating area in the lobby. I nodded and led them to the chairs, choosing one that faced the security desk so the guard could see me clearly. Once seated, I waited in silence for them to speak. "Rachel, honey," my mother began, her voice softening into the tone she used when she wanted something. "We know things got out of hand on your birthday. Things were said in the heat of the moment that were not meant. We are so sorry for how that evening ended." It was the closest thing to an apology I had heard from her in years. But I noticed it carefully avoided acknowledging exactly what had been said or who had said it. "I appreciate that," I said neutrally. "But it does not explain why you are here now, creating a scene in my building." "We are family," Matthew said, as if that explained everything. "Family works through difficult times together." "Is that what this is? A difficult time?" "Because from where I am sitting, it looks like the consequences of your own actions catching up with you." His expression hardened. "Look, I know you are still upset, but this situation is serious. The bank is threatening foreclosure on Mom's house. My car has already been repossessed. We need your help." "My help," I repeated. "You mean my money? Call it whatever you want." He snapped, the veneer of contrition already wearing thin. "But yes, we need financial assistance until we can get back on our feet. And why should I provide that after how you both treated me?" My mother leaned forward, her eyes filling with calculated tears. "Because we are family, Rachel. Despite our differences, blood is thicker than water. I raised you. I gave you life. You called me garbage and threw me out of your house," I reminded her, my voice steady despite the pain those memories still caused. "You said I was no daughter of yours." She had the grace to look briefly ashamed before rallying. I was upset. "You know I did not mean those things." "I think you did mean them," I said quietly. "I think they revealed how you truly feel about me when I am not providing financial support." Matthew made a sound of impatience. "Can we cut the psychoanalysis? The situation is urgent. I have creditors calling every day. Some of them are not the kind of people you want to owe money to." That caught my attention. What does that mean? Are you in trouble with loan sharks? He looked away, confirmation enough. Matthew has had some gambling issues, my mother admitted reluctantly. He was trying to make some quick money to pay you back, but things got out of hand. The irony was almost too much. So let me get this straight. You took money from me, claiming it was for necessities. Then you gambled to try to get money to pay me back for the money you already took under false pretenses? It sounds bad when you put it that way. Matthew muttered. It is bad. It is incredibly bad judgment and a complete betrayal of trust. We know we have made mistakes, my mother said, reaching for my hand. I pulled away before she could touch me. But we are trying to make things right. We just need a little help to get through this crisis. And then what? We go back to the same dysfunctional pattern? I send thousands of dollars each month while you both lie about what it is for and treat me with contempt. It would be different this time. Matthew insisted. I have learned my lesson. I am looking for jobs, real ones. And I will pay you back every penny. I studied him, searching for any sign of genuine change or remorse. I saw only desperation and the same manipulative tactics he had always used. No, I said simply. No, my mother repeated, as if she had not heard correctly. No, I am not giving you any more money. Not $5,000, not $5. I am not responsible for your choices anymore. Matthew's face darkened with anger. You cannot just abandon your family like this. What kind of person does that make you? It makes me someone who finally has healthy boundaries, I replied. Someone who values herself enough not to accept abuse in exchange for the privilege of being financially exploited. You will regret this, he said, his voice low and threatening. I know people who work with your clients. One word from me about how you treat your family and your precious business could suffer. I stood up, signaling the end of the conversation. Are you threatening me now? Because that is definitely going to convince me to give you money. Matthew, stop it, my mother hissed, pulling at his arm. To me, she said, he did not mean that. We are just desperate. I understand desperation, I said. But I will not be manipulated, threatened, or guilt anymore. You both need to leave now. This is not over, Matthew said as he stood. You cannot just cut us off and expect no consequences. Actually, I can. And if you continue to harass me or threaten my business, the consequence will be a restraining order. I turned and nodded to the security guard, who had been watching our interaction carefully. These people were just leaving. The guard approached. Is everything okay, Ms. Morgan? Yes, thank you. My visitors are done here. We will see ourselves out, my mother said stiffly, gathering her purse. But Rachel, please think about what you are doing. We are the only family you have. No, I said, the realization crystallizing as I spoke. Family is not just biology. Family is people who support you, respect you, and want what is best for you without expecting payment in return. By that definition, you have not been my family for a very long time. I watched them walk out. Matthew's posture rigid with anger, my mother's shoulders slumped in defeat. The security guard, a kind-faced older man named Frank, stood beside me. Tough situation, he observed quietly. Yes, I agreed. But necessary. For what it is worth, he said, I have worked security for 15 years. Seen a lot of family disputes. The people who show up making scenes and demands like that, they are rarely the ones who deserve another chance. I smiled at him, grateful for the unexpected support. Thank you, Frank. And thank you for calling me down instead of just sending them away. I think I needed this confrontation for closure. As I rode the elevator back to my apartment, I felt a strange mix of sadness and liberation. The last ties to my toxic family relationships had been severed, painfully but definitively. The future stretched before me. Uncertain but full of possibilities that were finally mine alone to explore. 3 months passed with no further contact from my family. I had worried that Matthew might follow through on his threat to damage my business reputation, but if he tried, it had no impact. In fact, my company continued to thrive, with 4 new major clients signing on during that period. Without the constant drain of supporting my family financially and emotionally, I was able to focus my energy on growth and innovation in ways I never had before. My new apartment became a true home, decorated exactly to my taste without concern for anyone else's opinions. I joined a book club, started taking weekend hiking trips with Jessica and other friends, and even began dating more seriously. Life developed a rhythm that felt authentic and peaceful in a way I had never experienced. One morning, I received an email from my cousin Thomas, whom I had always been close to but had lost touch with in recent years. "I ran into Matthew yesterday," he wrote. "He was working at the electronics store in the mall. He did not seem happy to see me, especially when I asked about you. Thought you might want to know he finally got a job." The news did not fill me with the satisfaction I might have expected. Instead, I felt a quiet hope that perhaps my brother was finally taking steps towards self-sufficiency. Not for my sake, but for his own. A week later, Jessica forwarded me a social media post from my mother. It showed a small apartment with the caption, "New beginnings in my cozy downsized space." Sometimes life forces changes that turn out to be blessings. The apartment was modest but neat, a dramatic change from the large suburban house she had insisted on maintaining despite its cost. Again, I felt no triumph, just a measured optimism that perhaps she too was adjusting to a more realistic lifestyle. My therapist helped me process these developments without taking responsibility for their outcomes or reopening doors to toxic relationships. "It is natural to care about what happens to them," she assured me. "They are still people who were central to your life for many years. But caring about their welfare from a distance is very different from resuming the caretaker role." In therapy, I continued to work through the deep hurt of being called garbage by my own mother. Those words had cut deeper than I initially realized, triggering childhood insecurities and fears of being fundamentally unlovable. The cruelest words often come when someone is trying to control us and failing, my therapist explained. "Your mother lashed out with the most hurtful thing she could think of because she was losing her power over you. Those words reflected her desperation, not your worth." Gradually, the sting of that memory began to fade, replaced by a stronger sense of self-worth built on healthier relationships and personal achievements. My support network expanded in unexpected ways. Stephanie, whose guest room had been my sanctuary during those first difficult weeks, became one of my closest friends. Her straightforward kindness and lack of hidden agendas was refreshing after years of navigational family manipulation. Frank, the security guard who had witnessed the confrontation with my family, made a point of checking in whenever I passed through the lobby. All quiet on the family front, he would ask with a sympathetic smile. These small gestures of genuine concern helped heal wounds I had carried for years. 6 months after cutting financial ties with my family, I received a letter from my mother's sister, Aunt Louise. Unlike Aunt Linda, who had initially called to pressure me into resuming support, Louise had always been the family truth teller, maintaining a polite distance from the dysfunction. "I want you to know that I understand why you made the choice you did," she wrote. "Karen has always favored Matthew in ways that were unhealthy for both of you. What you described happening on your birthday was inexcusable, and you deserved better. I am sorry I was not more present in your life to offer an alternative perspective on family. If you are open to it, I would love to reconnect." Her words brought unexpected tears. Having even one family member validate my experience and acknowledge the truth meant more than I could have imagined. We began exchanging emails, then phone calls, gradually building a relationship based on mutual respect rather than obligation or financial dependence. Through Louise, I heard occasional updates about my mother and brother without having to engage directly. "Matthew is still at the electronics store," she reported during one call, "and has a roommate to share expenses. Your mother complains about her apartment being small, but I think the forced simplification has been good for her." Out of curiosity, I asked my financial advisor to calculate exactly how much money I had given my brother over the years. The final tally was staggering, $220,000. Money that could have purchased a house outright in many parts of the country. Money that had essentially vanished into luxury purchases, gambling, and an unsustainable lifestyle. But rather than dwelling on what was lost, I focused on what I had gained: freedom, self-respect, and the opportunity to use my resources in ways that aligned with my values. I started a small scholarship fund for first-generation college students, remembering my own struggles to finance my education. I invested in expanding my business, creating jobs for 3 new employees. And I allowed myself small luxuries that I had always denied while sending thousands to my family each month. The experience changed how I viewed generosity itself. True giving, I realized, should come from abundance rather than obligation, and should empower rather than enable. Helping someone temporarily through a genuine crisis is different from financing an endless cycle of dependency and entitlement. In the end, the most valuable lesson was learning that family is defined by how people treat each other, not by blood relation. The friends who stood by me, who offered support without demands, who celebrated my successes without jealousy, they became my chosen family. A family bound by mutual respect and genuine care rather than obligation and guilt. I still occasionally feel a pang of sadness for what might have been. In quiet moments, I sometimes wonder if my mother ever truly loved me for myself, or if I was always just a resource to be exploited. I wonder if Matthew might someday grow into someone capable of an authentic relationship, or if the patterns of entitlement are too deeply ingrained. But these thoughts no longer consume me. I have built a life filled with meaningful work, genuine connections, and a peace that comes from knowing my own worth is not dependent on others' validation. So, what would I say to someone facing a similar situation with family? Trust your instincts. Set boundaries. Remember that love should not hurt or diminish you. And know that sometimes the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and others, is to stop enabling destructive patterns, even when that means walking away. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between your own well-being and family expectations? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to my channel for more authentic conversations about family dynamics, personal growth, and finding your own path. Thank you for being part of this journey with me, and remember, your worth is not determined by those who fail to see it.